What's going on, guys? Chris here with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal in Palm Beach County, Florida. I'm pulling a little bit of a JRA over here with the whiteboard, but I want to go over pricing, how to kind of determine it, and the reasons that you need to have behind it. I get asked about pricing more than probably anything else, and the problem with answering the questions when it comes to actual numbers is that there is a big factor that goes into play, and it's something I can't help you with, and that is location. So what we charge in like South Florida may be different from Texas to California to New York to Mississippi to Wisconsin to Georgia, North Carolina. Everyone is going to vary because location will alter your demographic, your audience, your supply and demand, your population, your disposal fees, your gas costs, how long it takes you to get from point A to point B and back. All these things come into play, not to mention insurances vary price-wise from state to state. Some have different laws and rules. Some are a little bit more strict about what you can dump and can't dump. There's a lot of factors that go into pricing that you really need to be familiar with. So I want to talk about at least setting up a minimum pay, a strategy at least to go ahead and get your increments kind of put in, and then how I would recommend finding your full truckload, and then as far as how many increments to have based on the size truck and trailer you have or box truck. So hopefully this is a visible board. I know the lighting is a little tricky because I have lighting in 4 different angles coming in, and I don't even know if you can even see me right now. But we're gonna try to see what we can do here. But I'm going to try to explain it simply without overcomplicating it, which I'm not always super great at. So if I do, please just comment down below any questions and I'll try to explain it a little bit more thoroughly. But we're just gonna go and get started. So when it comes to pricing, location is number 1. This is number 1. For the same reasons I just mentioned, you have distance, disposal, supply and demand, population. Is your city 500 to 1,000 people? Is it 50,000 people? Obviously, you're going to have more chances of opportunity the higher your population is, especially depending on if you're out in the country or if you're in the city where it's easier or harder for people to get rid of stuff that they don't want anymore. Are they going to be willing to pay someone $200 to get rid of a couch that they just replaced with a new one versus someone who probably has a truck themselves and they know how to dispose of things, but for whatever reason they were just hoping that maybe it'd be a little cheaper or it'd be a little bit easier. But it really depends on the people, right? We're service-based. Everything depends on our customers. So location is number 1. When it comes to your minimum pickups, there's a few things I recommend you find out first. Number 1 is your expenses. I am writing on an angle, so this is probably gonna look like a 6-year-old wrote it, I'm sorry. But expenses, you need to figure out how much it costs in bills and just general expenses to keep your business running every single month, and then divide that by 30, that's your average per a month amount of days, and then you're gonna get how much it costs to run your business. Cost per a day. Let's say, for example, it's $1,000, right? That comes out to about $33 a day. So we're gonna put that off to the side here. Now, figure out how much your disposal is, right? Does it cost you $100 minimum? Does it cost you $20 minimum? You know, are they charging you $200 by the ton like New York? You know, down here in South Florida, it's $10 minimum, it's $42 a ton. So that's pretty affordable. So let's just say, for example of this, let's say you have a minimum pickup of, a minimum dump fee of $25. Most people won't go to the dump with just a single item. They'll wait until they have a decent enough load to where it makes sense minimum pickup wise or minimum drop off. But if in an event you had to go get rid of it because you need a full trailer for your next job, then you're gonna wanna be able to factor that in. So you have your bills, we have minimum disposal, gas. Are you doing a box truck? Do you have a truck and trailer, a pickup truck? what's your average mile per gallon? On average, what is your typical commute per job? Is it 15 miles round trip? Is it 30 miles round trip? And then factor in your gas. Is that going to cost you 1 gallon of gas, 2 gallons of gas, less, more? You're going to want to figure out what your average is. Let's just say for your average job, you're doing a 25-mile round trip. With our trucks, that's pretty much 2 to 3 gallons of gas, especially if you're pulling a trailer with weight behind you. So let's just go ahead and say 15 bucks in gas. This is per a job locally. Now, how much do you want to pay yourself? This isn't free. You don't want to work for free. Otherwise, you just go out and get a 9 to 5. Do you want to pay yourself 25 bucks an hour, 30, 40, 50, 60? Are you going to take a percentage? Are you going to pay yourself salary? How do you want to pay yourself? On top of that, if you don't do this solo like I do, how much are you going to pay your helper? They're not going to help you for free either. So you have to be able to factor that into play. Let's just say for simplicity, we're going to pretend that you're doing this by yourself and you want to pay yourself 30 bucks an hour. Right now, you have a total cost. You have $108 for your minimum pickup. I might have screwed that up. I don't know. I'm tired. But so you got to assume that on your average minimum pickup, you need to be making at least $108 just to break even. That's not profit. In my opinion, minimum pickups aren't going to ever pull you profit because they're more meant for trying to gain a repeat customer, a referral, or a positive review, which is going to have a positive impact on your business in the future, which can lead you more jobs. So for my opinion, minimum pickups don't pull profit. If you're doing a side hustle, then you can cancel out the bills and you can up the pay because your only expenses is going to be your disposal and your gas. So this is if it's a side hustle and it's not really a business. Otherwise, you would factor everything into your business. So if this is your typical costs, then you're gonna want your minimum pickup to be around, let's say, 110 to maybe like 120, just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room for gas or disposal. So that would be your minimum pickup. Now be prepared that if your area has high cost of running, but you have competition out there that are going cheaper than this, you may find it hard to get minimum pickups, and that's not always the worst thing. But now that we have your minimum pickup, next up is trying to figure out your increments. So I personally, I'm gonna get my old self down here, these bad knees of 5 years of tracking cross country. I would say if you're running a pickup truck, like you're just using the bed, I would say do a bed load, a half load, and a full load. That's my opinion. If you have like a 5x8 trailer, I would do a quarter, half, 3/4 full. If you're doing a 12-foot to 14-foot trailer, I would do increments of 8 to 12. If you're doing like a 16-foot trailer, or you have a big box truck, then I would say you're gonna wanna be in the 12 to 16 increment range. The reason for the extra increments is that price point wise, you're being more fair to your customers. And it's also easier to sell yourself on the job, especially in upsells. So if a customer is like, I have this much stuff, and you're like, okay, let's say you had a 5x8 trailer. Well, it's either going to be a quarter to half a truck, right? There is no in between. So if you have 3/8 of a load, realistically, you're going to have to charge a customer additional 75, 80 bucks or whatever to get to your half truck mark. That could be very off-putting for a client. Whereas if you offer that 3/8 mark, you could say you're probably going to be around a quarter truck, maybe 3/8. So it's only going to be a $30 jump, right? You give your customer a little bit more security, knowing that if they want to add on one item, it's only going to be an extra 30 bucks versus like 100 more. So that's the reason for the increments, having the different price points for the different costs. So once you have your increments down, whether it's quarters or eighths or sixteenths or I don't know what twelfths would be, whatever it is, these are your increments. It's going to depend on your truck. You also want to make sure that you keep it simple for yourself. Keep in mind, if you're doing 16 price points, you better remember all 16 price points in case a customer asks. You don't want to sit there and be like, it's going to be like $4.19. Like, you want to be able to say that quick. You want to know exactly what it is, because you want to be the most confident one when you're talking about your business. So you have your increments. It's going to depend on your size of your truck, trailer, box truck, whatever vehicle. Hopefully you can still read this. I don't know if I'm getting too low. So you have your minimum pickup and you have your increments. The next step is finding your full truck, and then at that point, the majority of the population kind of does a linear progression to get there. So your smaller loads up to like a half a truck are going to be pretty reasonable. And then from a half a truck to a full truck is going to be smaller amounts per increment. And there's a few reasons behind it. I'm not going to get into those reasons. Just know that the typical junk hauler, they go in a linear progression. So if your minimum is, let's say 110 and your full truck is like 600, you're not going to just do like 110 per every eighth of a truck, because they're going to end up at $800 load. So you want to figure out, I would say when it comes to your full truck price, figure out where your competition is on average. Look up 3 or 4 companies in your area, whether they're franchises or they're just guys like you, but a little bit, a couple of years behind their belt. Figure out what their average full truck price is, and then see if that works for you when it comes to your expenses. Because at the end of the day, you need to make money, otherwise why are you doing this, right? So for an average, your full truck should take you 2 man hours. So you should have 2 guys, and it should take you 2 hours each. So 4 total hours to load a full truck. That is the franchised national average, which means that every quarter of a truck should take each guy about 30 minutes to load. So if you're doing it by yourself, you should give yourself about an hour. And I know these are high numbers, but it applies for multiple reasons. So this is like an average thing throughout the country. So you want to assume that if you're paying 2 guys, right, now you're doubling this by 2 for a total of 4 hours on the clock. You want to make sure that when you're factoring your disposal and then your pay, those are going to be the 2 things that change the most, is time and disposal based on weight. You're going to want to make sure that your full truck price, whatever you end up going with, that you're still going to make profit. The average person that I've kind of recognized tries to shoot for a minimum of a 30% profit margin on all their jobs other than minimum pickups. So you want to make sure that whatever your full truck price is, if you're going to be matching competition, you're going to want to make sure, oh my God, you're going to want to make sure that you're able to cover yourself with the higher expenses that come with a bigger job. If you're going to go haul away construction debris and you're loading 4,000 pounds into your trailer, most places charge more for debris versus just trash. So if you're going to get charged more money for disposal, it's going to take you longer to load it. Is that full truck price going to be worth it to cover the expenses and still keep yourself in that profit margin? This is what you need to figure out. And it's going to take a lot of trial and error, and you're probably not going to do it right away. It might take you 3 months, 6 months, a year. You might still be changing your pricing after 2 years. You need to really play around with it and figure out what works and what doesn't. You're probably going to lowball some estimates in the beginning. That's okay. You're going to learn from it. But your general pricing should be able to cover you anytime you do it. So if you're doing an eighth of a load, a quarter of a load, half, 3/4, full truck, you should always be pulling in profit. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to dig yourself a hole financially. The reason for profit is you're not only allowing yourself more money to give to yourself or your employees, but that profit goes into marketing. That profit goes into additional expenses, renewals, registrations, right? If you have maintenance that comes up on your vehicle, that is what that profit goes to. So without that profit, you're going to end up paying out of pocket for all these things that you shouldn't be paying out of pocket for. And you either are going to rack up debt, or you're just always going to be so strung out that you're always just fighting for every single dollar that you tried to go for. And you're just going to stress yourself out. It's not going to work. You're going to end up failing the business. So you need that profit, and you need to figure out what number is going to work for you for that profit. By the way, when it comes to your minimum pickup, you need to figure out how much volume you're willing to take before you move into the 8th load. So let's say you do a 400 cubic foot trailer. That means that let's say you can fit 8 standard refrigerators in there comfortably. So your standard refrigerator is going to be about comfortably 3 feet by 3 feet, about 6 feet tall, right? That's your standard freezer on top, fridge on the bottom. If you can fit 8 of those in there, assume that each one is about 50 cubic feet. When you go to do your minimum pickup, you need to be able to say, okay, is this couch smaller than that refrigerator? If it's more than that, I need to charge more money. Even if you don't go to your 1/8 load, maybe you just tack on an extra 10, 20 bucks. But you need to figure out what volume is considered a minimum pickup. And then if it's a little bit more, charge a little bit more. If it's less, you're making profit, right? Don't drop your minimum down just because it's less stuff. That's what the minimum is for. You're charging to come out to do the job. It's already not going to be worth it price-wise. So that's how I personally do my minimums. And I will kind of, like, let's say I'm going to pick up a king size mattress. It's not quite 1/8 of a load, but it's definitely not a minimum. So I might pick a number in between the two. Or if it's maybe it's like a 3-seater couch, but it's a sleeper sofa, right? That's probably around 1/8 of a load because it's a little bigger than a refrigerator, but the weight wise is also there. So I may do a little closer to like that middle mark, maybe 3/4 of the way to the 1/8 load, or just do a 1/8 load pickup. So you need to figure out where your volume lies, what you're going to consider minimum pickup. And then at that point, the easiest way I would say when it comes to doing your trailer is to go by length, or your truck, go by length and do that by your increments. So if you have for example, I have a 12-foot trailer. What I did was I found the quarter marks, made a little Sharpie marker, a little line, so I knew where they were. And then I just found the halfway points of those markers and made a secondary mark. So that way I know that every 3 feet is going to be a quarter of a truck, which means that every 18 inches is going to be 1/8. So that's the best way for me to kind of judge my volume. So if I'm looking at a piece and I can say, okay, it's about 18 inches in depth. All right, it's about 4 feet wide, about 5 feet tall. Cool. It's probably going to take up about a little less than 1/8 of a load. So that's how you can kind of price things, just by knowing your measurements and then be able to visualize something when you look at it. Pretend you have a ruler facing all 4 directions of it. So you're looking at the height, the width, the depth, and all 3 points. But that way you can always tell how much something's going to take up in your truck, and then you can do the volume based on that. So like I said, I hope this wasn't overly complicated. I try to keep it simple. The whiteboard hopefully was kind of simple and you can always pause and check it out. But I'd say at the end of the day, you need to make sure you're covering your expenses, your pay, your fuel, and your disposal. Those are going to be your 4 main contributions. Everything outside of that for business should be coming out of your profit. So you need to make sure you're making a profit, and then you need to figure out what's worth it for you. And then on top of that, make sure that you're not being so greedy or that your expenses are so high that you have to charge, twice as much as your competition, which is going to lose you business because no one's going to want to use you. So if your prices have to be that high, you need to reevaluate how much you're paying yourself or how much your expenses are. So that's what I got. Hopefully that helps. Again, if you have any questions, comment down below. I'll try to be as helpful as possible. Otherwise, I will see you guys later on this week. And thanks for watching. Bye.